So here we are, and we are going to be discussing the acquisition of Activision Blizzard by Microsoft, and what that means. We're going to be discussing quite a bit about it. Let's start off with some quick introductions, though, because I don't expect everyone to necessarily know everyone that is here. So I am Temporal. I will be your host today. I'm a former Contenders coach, and I am now in the collegiate scene. If I move on from the left on the screen here, we have Maxwell. Maxwell, do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Um, I'm also in the collegiate scene as a player. Right now, I'm looking to build up a bit of a content base before the inevitable rise of Overwatch 2, which I
Nice.
have almost been solely for, and my at least that I've seen, very believe that the devs are going to pull it off. And now with the Microsoft deal, it's pretty much all but confirmed.
Which
So,
I definitely want to get more into. But moving right along with our introductions, next up we have Pioneer over from Lords. Pioneer, would you like to share a bit about yourself?
Hello, everyone. I am Pioneer, also known as Lamar Daniels, the esports director at Lord's University. Formerly from the traditional athletic space, got into esports about 4 or 5 years ago now. Primarily working with our Overwatch team here, but I kind of oversee the entire thing that we have over at Lord's University.
Very cool. Very cool. And that brings us over to Realth. And Realth is not from the collegiate scene. What can
No.
you tell us?
Hello, I'm Ralph. I've been streaming VOD reviews 5 days a week since last December. I've made a couple of thought pieces on tank design and some opinions Temporal necessarily disagrees with on there, which he discussed before. Aside from that, essentially 15 hours a week contribution to just reviewing random people. I've done a bit of freelance recently, so that's basically it.
Nice, nice. So are we going to see you adopting? I think it's just a thing of us YouTubers and streamers. We just have to adopt collegiate teams now. Are you going to be in our collegiate scene soon? I know you're in the wrong country, but you can pull it off. I believe in you.
Could be. I've got a couple of viewers with teams,
Fair
so
enough.
maybe I'll look into helping them.
So let's get into sort of the first major area here. And I think that's got to be, what's the best part of the acquisition? Like, I think there's some things to be worried about here, some things to look forward to. But let's start with, what do we each think is the best part of the acquisition? And
one thing.
let's start with Max, because I know Max is
Yeah,
super
I got him.
optimistic here, Mr. Optimism. So what do you like?
Whenever the deal is completed and officially completed, Bobby Kotick will be gone forever.
I mean, that's
And I think
rumored, but
that's great
it's
news.
strongly
No,
believed.
it's basically confirmed. It's widely believed within the business space that it's going to happen.
Right, right.
And it's also, you wouldn't have him be CEO of Activision Blizzard and have him answer to the CEO of Xbox. It wouldn't make sense.
Well, I mean, in a business standpoint, that's not that weird to have an
He could
acquired
be.
company
He could.
keep their
We wouldn't have
CEO,
the
but
same
for
title, and he
Bobby,
wouldn't have the same
it would be
control.
weird.
At the very least, he doesn't have the same amount of control and influence.
Okay,
And I've looked at sentiments from people like Semito, who've talked with people who were merged into Microsoft, and they
sure.
all have had very good environmental experiences. And so basically, the good environment of the dev team of Overwatch is just being put in a generally better environment so that we don't have to worry about it anymore. There's a lot more stuff to cover too, how Bobby Kotick messed things up for the Overwatch.
Sure, sure. And
Yeah.
I think Bobby Kotick will definitely be a topic. Sorry, go ahead, Lamar.
I'd say at the bare minimum, he's gonna. Sorry,
Okay.
he's gonna sling a bag of money over his shoulder and go off into the
300 million.
distance with a bandit mask on, right? At the bare minimum. But it's okay if he can go off with his money. I'm absolutely fine with that. I do owe him ill will, but still, you know what? If it's better for the games in the long run, that's better. So
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Do you both think that's the best aspect of this too? I think there's probably other good, interesting aspects. So, Pioneer, what are you thinking? What do you like about this acquisition?
I mean, Maxwell's kind of hit obviously the main priority, which I think a change of leadership is something that desperately been needed over at Activision Blizzard for some time, even before we even heard of all of the harassment and the lawsuits and the state of California going after them. It was kind of pretty obvious that some changes needed to be made. Um, a little on the kind of like the in the weeds a little bit more is I'm interested to see what happens with kind of obviously pertains to my job, but the esports side of things. primarily if you look at how Halo, when their game just dropped and how it was seemingly esports ready immediately, big the big
Mhm.
lane down in Raleigh, tournaments happening right away, already had skins in the game by partner teams. I'm interested to see how they kind of merge that with the fact that both the COD League and Overwatch League both have um, the whole franchise leagues and how they work with that. With Halo being completely opposite as a whole open bracket design that we know from like traditional old school esports. So I'm a little excited for that. That
Okay.
hopefully it gets a little spruce into both of those leagues. So that's kind of what I guess, the main thing that I've been kind of interested to know about.
Okay. I don't want to hard pivot there yet, but are you worried that, Activision Blizzard hasn't been the most successful in esports in the past and Microsoft hasn't had a ton of funding in their esports in the past? Like when we look at these two things, there's still not really any great expertise within those two companies, considering they just acquired some giant leagues here with Owl and COD.
Um, I not too worried because I think that had to have been something that was discussed going ahead. Like the whole thought of buying out Activision Blizzard or a merger or whatever, like however the talks decided or began, like at some point the whole esports division had to have been a major pain point or a major stake within those discussions. Um, I like what Microsoft's done with Halo and kind of being like more hands off on it. As we all know, Blizzard's been very much kind of restrictive, especially on the Overwatch side, on like just anything sans the Overwatch League or sans contenders being ran. So I'm trying to be on the positive side of that, and I think that had to have been definitely discussed or thought about when the whole talks had to have been, kind of rolling from the beginning.
Yeah. My hope when it comes to the esports side of things, because the Overwatch League somehow was able to actually get an increase in viewership year over year from 2020 to 2021,
Yeah.
whenever Overwatch was in its lowest point ever. Um, in terms of no content updates, no like intrinsic increase to Overwatch's value. And so, and from what I've heard about other mergers with Microsoft and what it seems to be their leadership is that, they're going to take a look at the problems but leave all the good things there. So we're going to still have the good leadership of Overwatch League, and my hope is that there might be less restriction for the contenders in tier 2, tier 3 side of things, so that more community tournaments, there's less restrictions on sponsorships for teams, which really hurts a lot, and so that grassroots can really start to build.
Okay. Okay. So you think we might see less restriction, Microsoft and less restriction. And what leads you to believe that? I mean, that's I'm not saying
The only
the wildest take, but it is Microsoft.
It's
They
more
had
of a hope,
okay.
but based on what Pioneer was saying about Halo is that Halo is more structured in the type of like CS:GO. It's not franchised,
Sure.
with it's more individual teams. Pretty much everything is grassroots, and it's just the organizations that do it the best.
Should we
And
be
if they took that model and applied it to tier 2, tier 3 Overwatch and then kept the Overwatch League, it would kind of be the best of both worlds.
Okay. Should we be worried that Halo, is new in terms of this iteration at this point? Their esports scene is, not huge, and things tend to sort of start big and then get smaller. Like when we looked at Overwatch, it was competing with League of Legends for viewership when it first came out, and it's nowhere near that at this point. Should we be worried that, hey, that fell off? So again, I'm still a little worried about this. I'm also just being a negative Nancy, but I'm a little worried about this lack of esports experience.
Um, I understand the concern, and I think I'm gonna bring up a point that Samito, because I watched the great debate stuff with the Your Overwatch
Sure.
and all of them. Samito makes this point 5 times every podcast that Rocket League, when they went free to play, had an increase in search results, maybe even over Overwatch or something. Um, Apex was in dire straits, so pretty much bottom of the rung in terms of all competitive shooters.
Sure.
And then they added a lot more content. They started being more proactive. They started being more interesting and building more hype. And now they're more popular than Fortnite is right now.
Sure.
Like more search results, more viewership. They have an insane build. And if you look at that in terms of Minecraft, right? Microsoft in that way has done a great job with Minecraft, where Minecraft is always top of the ladder. So I think it's not off the table. We don't know how big it'll be, but it'll at least be better than anything we've had so far.
Okay. So we've got potentially esports, so that's maybe a bit of a question mark, but definitely there's some potential there. It can sort of only go up. We've got No More Bobby, which a lot of people are really excited about. What else sounds good? Who's got? What was that?
Removal of Bobby was actually my Christmas wish, so
Santa delivered. He was
a
little late,
a little bit late.
You know, it's that supply chain backup. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so the third thing that's absolutely amazing is that Microsoft cannot sit on the IP. I mean, they've just spent 70 billion. They're not going to sit on the IP.
True.
They have to make money from this. The games are going to be produced, okay? Even if they have to put money into it to get it out. Yeah, they will produce the games. So all of the IPs that Blizzard have completely abandoned, I mean, every single IP they have, StarCraft, Diablo, World of Warcraft, Overwatch, Heart of the Swarm, ... Everything's dead. Okay, I don't want to say this in a harsh way to Blizzard, but you've killed everything. I mean, it may not be that the grass is greener, but there's not grass over here. So if I flip the table, right, maybe I don't know, right? It can. The trouble is, right, discussing this, it can only be a good thing because they screwed up so massively badly on every single game they have that there's only up to go.
So
that's my opinion.
I don't know. I think they've screwed up pretty badly on RTS. And again, I'm just going to be difficult here because it's my job. Like, they've screwed up badly on their RTS stuff. And that is sort of peak Blizzard, their RTS, their Warcraft 3, their StarCraft Brood War. And they've screwed up on those franchises. But World of Warcraft still has some play. Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm, those aren't really new franchises. Those aren't really new IPs. Those are, let's use our existing IPs. World of Warcraft is still running, okay, not the greatest in the world. It's had problems, don't get me wrong. There's a reason it had huge Exodiuses to Final Fantasy XIV. But it's still making some decent money for them. It's still an active game. I think StarCraft we'd like to see, you know, we're all kind of concerned if it doesn't have a future because StarCraft is awesome. But... And, you know, then they do have, in Diablo, if they give us more, you know, don't you guys have phones, Diablo might be in some trouble. But they did clean up Diablo 3 after a disastrous release. And that was a successful game. That was on, like, top 10 games. That was on popular multiplayer games for the consoles for quite a while there. So is it fair to say that those IPs were in trouble? Like, maybe they bring back StarCraft. Are you going to think they're going to pump a lot out here? What do you envision, Ralph?
I've got a feeling Diablo was kind of like the start of the downfall when they released that with the market broken. Sure. Honestly, since then, Overwatch was an uptick. World of Warcraft isn't an IP for them. I want to be very clear. Like they have a certain amount of income per year, but it's continuously going down, right? They're not getting their 10% growth to meet up with inflation or make their stockholders happy from World of Warcraft. They need to somehow go upwards. You can't just go on a slow decline and people be okay with that. To say World of Warcraft is fine, I mean, it's fine. It's holding them afloat, but it's like the ship's slowly sinking, right?
Yeah, but isn't that how they've always worked? Like, they release StarCraft, then StarCraft 2, and then, hey, maybe it's going to be 3-4 years before we release another game, and that's fine. I mean, they did get upticks when they released World of Warcraft Classic, that sort of thing. That surprised them how much they got, but I don't think nothing's happening with the Warcraft IP. We might like to see a return to RTS, but is it fair to say, like, okay, I see where you're coming from. Sorry, I'm being argumentative. Other people jump in.
I'm not well versed enough with World of Warcraft for the last 5 years in order to comment properly, so I wouldn't want to say this ship's burning, jump. I just think, you know what, the numbers kind of speak for themselves with the game.
Sure.
Diablo's dead. Heart of the Swarm is dead.
Yep.
It's possible they're making a new Diablo, but the fact is, if Microsoft acquisition pretty much guarantees that they're making a new Diablo, right? If you like any of these
Diablo
IPs,
4
they
was
definitely are. Diablo 4 got delayed
Yeah.
at the same time that Overwatch 2 did, but they're definitely making it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just the 2-year delay to literally everything because of COVID.
I think more on Ralph's point, and I agree. It's not like, sure, they did make billions of dollars. There's no doubt to say that they are a successful company from a monetary perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a reason they're monetized and they're valued at 67.8 billion, $68.7 billion dollars. Billions. Like, if you think about it, it would take $300 million to make it $68 billion. That's astounding amounts of money we can barely fathom just sitting here, right? And so I think a lot of the franchises are just, they've been wasting away, not properly being, because okay, they just haven't reached their full potential because they've been held back in so many ways. If you look at the Overwatch franchise, there was a tweet by a lead producer in Overwatch that has like 5,000 likes right now about how Bobby Kotick and his executive board members would thrust a project onto Overwatch 1, and the developers would do overtime on working on that project, and they would be canceled last second, costing months of Overwatch 2 development done.
Sure. No.
Like, there's just so many core problems, and if you can apply that to every other industry, and the dev team for Overwatch is good, right? It's good, but if you apply that to every other development team, plus you add the drinking at work and the worse environments and the people who just sit around doing nothing all day, there's no wonder that a lot of the best people are leaving and a lot of the games are just stagnating, not doing anything.
Sure. So I might say, though, that I think one of the single best things that happened is they get to wipe out a bunch of negative PR with this acquisition. Like, the reality is changing the culture is good and important, but the degree to which it becomes, it's okay to work at Activision Blizzard again, you don't have to go, I'm trying to find a new job to not be attached to this company.
Really?
And the degree to which you're not, when you release Diablo 4, when you release Overwatch 2, having a bunch of terrible articles thrown at you from the Kotakus of the world, the Verges of the world, that sort of thing, because, hey, your company did bad things and we don't want people to forget about that. So, like, having to release into that negative spindle, I think that alone is one of the better things that they get out of this acquisition. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
No, 100%. Yeah. Just having to release a game fresh and clean without everyone having to boycott it because of the horrible things going on at Blizzard is worth, I'd say, a good third extra on the amount of people that are going to buy Overwatch 2. It is ridiculous the amount of negative PR that gets cancelled out just by the change in management.
I mean,
it is amazing.
Microsoft just pulled them out of the gutter, and the thing is, people trust Microsoft, right?
Sure.
They make their mistakes, right? Phil Spencer said, like a couple of weeks ago, that he's not going to lecture other companies about their own problems because we've had our own problems. And then he goes and buys them just to fix all the problems.
Well, you say he goes and buys them just to fix all their problems. That might have been a little bit of
he goes and buys them
maneuvering.
to fix their problems and have them under their IPs, right? Of course, there's
Okay,
the money aspect.
I think there was
Metaverse, whatever.
probably some degree of let me dunk on you, get other people to dunk on you. That helps lower your price that we buy you. I mean, there was probably a little bit of
they're
that.
absolutely taking advantage of the horse being beaten, and I think they should. I think it's better for me that the horse is now picked up by a giant multi-billion-dollar company that has a history of good environments, being able to merge people, having long-running. I mean, they literally own the game that has been bought the most amount of times in the world, and has been running long form with very little content updates, just based on maintenance and advertising and marketing. Right, very simple stuff, and they're doing content updates for it. Which is really hard to do for a procedurally generated game. So it's just like you removing all of the asterisks that the Overwatch dev team specifically was working under Activision Blizzard management, and now it's the asterisks that they're working under Microsoft management. So you just take away all of the red tape, all of the chains holding them back, and now they can do, like, they were already working on getting their own PR team because their old PR team messed with everything. Getting a new commercial team, and then you've got Microsoft taking the reins off from the upper end.
Sure.
And so they're much more free to franchise in all kinds of different ways that they never could have before, in movies and anime.
No, I hear you. Pioneer, go ahead. You had something there?
And I was just saying, I think Tempora brings up an interesting point. I don't know if any of you watched the show Succession, but it's very interesting to think about. I don't want to spoil it, but this is what's happened now is very great show, by the way. You should definitely watch it. But it's very reminiscent about what happens like in the third season. And I'm very interested to know like what went on in the background before this happened, how fast this decided to happen. Because who knows if like Microsoft was thinking about this for a while, and they're adding on to everything so that the value of the company goes lower. It makes it easier for them to buy.
It does. Sorry,
exactly. Who knows what was going on internally that we don't even know with Blizzard on, how the power structure was happening there, that they're like, okay, hey, the best way to save this is to then sell off to somebody else. But one point I wanted to make is, and I think if you kind of look at, I think one of the best things that were happening here is that Maxwell kind of hit on it with, you have the trust that people have in Microsoft, and you also have the, albeit a little bit wavering, but kind of like the long-standing loyalty that people have had with Blizzard. Like, if you think about all the games that we've been naming, like, people are loyal to those games for a variety of reasons. WoW, Overwatch. I still have players on my esports program talk about playing Heroes of the Storm back when our program first launched. Like, I think you have people who have been wanting to have a reason to be loyal to this company. And a lot of those reasons were like, hey, great games are being made. And like over the past couple of years, it's been like, why am I? But I think there's a number of people who have been like, I really, really want to. You make it hard for me to be loyal to you, but I really, really want to. And I think what better thing can you have in a company with your consumers versus trust and loyalty put together? And I think that's going to be a really cool thing to see how Microsoft works with going forward after all of this.
Yeah, in a way that they're not really buying the company as it is. They're buying all the potential people that ever might go back to World of Warcraft that have played it. Right? Yeah. They're buying every single person that has a good opinion of Blizzard because they spent their 8 to 14-year-old years playing World of Warcraft. This is a massive installed user base that just isn't there at the moment, but can be.
If you're ignoring Activision itself with Call of Duty, right? You look at just the Blizzard games, almost every single Blizzard game was industry defining at launch, which is an incredible feat, especially considering that they were having environmental issues like that. Like, some of the worst people were people who had been at Blizzard since the beginning. And now you're taking all of that talent and potential, the creativity, and you're putting it under on a foundation and under a leadership that allow that specific strength to grow. And I'm expecting, I was already looking forward to Overwatch 2 as another industry definer, right? Basically the Left 4 Dead 3 that we've all been wanting, but with like heroes and robots, right? And then you've got Diablo 4, which might end up being pretty good as well. We'll have to see on that. And so I'm really looking forward to the future of Blizzard games, even outside of Overwatch.
Okay. Well, I think we can circle back to a lot of what's here, but let's move on to maybe the negatives, the concerns. Maybe this is a smaller category. Maybe this is a larger category. I'm not going to taint the well too much. So, Pioneer, let's start with you. What would be your biggest concern or something you might be worried about with this acquisition?
I think it definitely has to be the possibility of, antitrust issues. Not only is it, if you kind of look at Microsoft, obviously they, them purchasing and, Xbox Game Studios now having, a direct say in what happens with Activision Blizzard, which is two huge entities coming together. But let's not forget, Microsoft this past year bought Bethesda Studio or Softworks Studios, ZeniMax, that kind of whole conglomerate thing. They said they're still working as its own specific entity, but that's still a huge kind of developer to put your money into as well. And so if we see Microsoft has now been, buy it up more and more IP or more companies around. How is that gonna work? As great as we want to believe in, oh hey, yeah, it's just Microsoft. How bad can they be? Being antitrust, you just never know. Exactly, right? You just never know. You never know. Yeah, it might be the game industry, but I think it doesn't. No matter what industry it is, you don't want a monopoly. That just kind of leads to complacency, which is kind of one of the biggest issues that happen with Activision Blizzard itself. So I think that kind of would be my biggest worry so far. I don't even know what the legal ramifications have been. I don't know if the Justice Department has approved this or something, or they still have to go through the whole antitrust issues. If someone knows, definitely hop in. But that is probably my first thought when everything was happening.
Sure.
Yeah, so a little bit of information for those who aren't aware. So, of course, the deal is going to take what's estimated 12 to 18 months to finally go through. There's a few different things to consider, like antitrust. Facebook's been sued multiple times. They just got sued again. I just saw another announcement that they got sued again, probably for antitrust or something, or privacy, whatever. Normal Facebook stuff. But then you look at Disney and they're buying everybody and it's not a problem. I think the difference is the industry. It's the difference in whether or not they consider gaming to be part of tech or entertainment. And my suspicion is that it'll fall more under entertainment because Activision doesn't make tech products. They don't make consoles. They're not like Nintendo, right?
Yeah,
They just make games. Games are entertainment. So my hope is that it'll fall under that, and we don't have to worry about the antitrust. But of course, they're going to have to look at that. So which is why it'll take a good amount of time. That's my only concern. My only concern, legitimately, is that it doesn't go through.
Okay.
Because based on again what I've heard about other companies being merged, is that they never had any problems with Microsoft.
Okay, with Microsoft specifically. Got it. I was going to say,
Yeah.
sometimes mergers do have problems. Usually the new
Oh,
toy
yeah.
is treated well for
Like
a year
Blizzard
or two.
being, you
but-
think maybe Blizzard being merged with Activision might have been a problem? I don't know.
Well, I mean, potentially, but again,
It's-
you'll notice Activision provided Blizzard more resources for that first
They
year
did,
or two when it was
and Blizzard
mostly
might have already
good.
had those problems anyway.
Right, right.
So
I've got a
maybe
feeling the
it's
rot
just
was already
in
there.
the end. What?
I've got a feeling the rot was already there, right?
Yeah,
I think we
yeah.
know the rot was already there.
But
from some
now
of the
everybody's
timelines.
being bought by Microsoft, so maybe it's the best outcome anyway.
Is Monopoly the best
Yeah.
outcome?
I
Well,
mean,
I wouldn't say it's a monopoly. We just, I guess we
I mean,
need.
it might be. Like, Netflix
We
was better.
We might need a biopoly and have Sony buy the rest of everybody.
Streaming was better when Netflix was the main player by a large degree,
Just have
right?
Nintendo
So,
off in the
like,
corner sitting there
is
making
this gonna
Legend
be
of
better
Zelda.
if-
Nintendo don't care. Nintendo are just going to keep making
It's really
Nintendo
funny because you
consoles.
think of
They
the
don't even
console
consider
wars.
them competitors. They're not,
You
they
think
don't
of-
care.
You think of console wars, and it's like you've got Xbox, you've got PlayStation, and then you've got Nintendo products. And it's just gonna be Xbox and PlayStation buying every single massive gaming company to where they're producing 100 games a year on their own, and Nintendo's just like, we're gonna release Breath of the Wild in like a year and a half, so just get ready for that, and then everybody's gonna buy it anyway.
Hey guys, do you want another Animal Crossing? You going to buy a next console?
I mean, the thing is, they will. Nintendo releases enough top-tier first-party games.
They do.
That they'll just be like, "Hey, we'll take this," and
Next
some of
Mario
you
game.
Steam developers who are making like games, single-A companies, we'll take you over here too. on our
Nintendo's just
Switch.
gonna buy Chris Pratt and have a monopoly on all our actors.
Probably. Okay. Any other concerns here besides monopolization? Do we have concerns of like, hey, maybe they're going to be forced in a different direction? Maybe they're going to be forced onto a more aggressive release schedule? Maybe they'll be too far from management, so they won't be able to whisper in their ear because it's a bigger company. Any other concerns from anyone here?
So the management are getting turned over, right? Pretty much across Blizzard entirely.
Sure.
The management getting turned over was necessary to happen anyway, but it does mean, as we all know, delays across the board, right? And if Microsoft want to push the games out regardless, it's going to turn out with bad games across the board because these delays are necessary to turn over these people, right? If you remove 10 managers and replace 10 managers, you're going to cause 6 months of delays everywhere. It really is just unavoidable at this point.
Yep.
Would there not be the merger? As far as I understand, with the same way that Bobby Kotick is the acting CEO until the Microsoft merger completes, would it not be the case that the development teams are basically acting as if it's not happening until all the paperwork is signed? It seems to me like it would be separate from the developers, where the developers, they just keep doing their job, and then there's a change in leadership based on all the paperwork. They still get paid, right? It would be the kind of thing where they design it all to be seamless. There wouldn't be any delays in the first place. Most of the delays from turnover came from within development team turnovers, like Jeff Kaplan, the other guy, and
managers,
those guys.
Yeah, it seems like there's not going to be delays because obviously Blizzard are basically continuing as is, right? But Microsoft have bought it, and that doesn't mean it continues as it is. They're going to have to start rooting out stuff from within them, and I really do think they wouldn't have bought it without the asterisk of you must fix your HR department before we actually get you. You must actually root out some of the rot and get rid of it so we don't have that negative PR when we take you on board. So regardless of whose hands it in, I think it's still going to turn over the managers.
That's for sure what the 2 to 3 dozen firings were about the day before this was announced. We saw those stories went out, and it is very common in acquisitions to go, oh, you have people that are on performance plans, or you have people with past discipline issues. We don't want anything to do with that. We want you to deal with them before we announce any sort of acquisition. And then we want you guys to hold a pot of money specifically to deal with lawsuits if you get sued from before we'd actually bought you, that sort of thing. And that would be very common. So I think you're on the right track there. Okay. So maybe let's go ahead and talk then about what this Microsoft acquisition means from a toxicity standpoint and from a Game Pass standpoint. And the reason I want to link those together is Microsoft has shown themselves to be less tolerant of toxicity. They have their CEO of gaming who has specifically, somewhat famously, said the not a free speech platform, that sort of thing, happy to do cross-platform bans. They seem to just be less tolerant of sort of a bad environment of the type that Overwatch reportedly has when it comes to gaming like that. And then they've also got their Game Pass, which is a lot like console systems, where the likelihood is that you'd be able to create infinite accounts without really having to buy the game again if you were on Game Pass then. So a greater smurfing problem.
You know what was leaked?
Go ahead.
Around BlizzCon 2020, you know the really cool thing? Clans, which is cross-platform, cross-game. That it was supposed to be designed, is designed for pretty much all Activision Blizzard products. It probably would have been in Call of Duty as well. So then you just like apply a Minecraft tag to that. So you got Minecraft clans, and then you can have a Dream clan, a Technoblade clan, right? And then you've got your other Minecraft. You got a Halo clans, right? So you can just adopt that software because you bought it for billions of dollars to all your other games and have a massive undertaking of everything. And so it'll be kind of a merging. So I'm sure, like you were saying, they'll just apply their philosophies from their games onto Blizzard environments.
I agree. I think that's a little technologically harder than you might suggest, but Microsoft has done the impossible technologically speaking before. So, okay. Okay, but like, what do we think it does to our ladder if we have a less toxicity tolerance? Can Microsoft really handle that? Like, some of the toxicity in Overwatch is a design issue, right? Like, it's so heavily designed for a team aspect for synergies, but then we have this solo ladder, and then also, hey, infinite smurfs. Like, what do those do to our ladder? Is that a problem? Will we bounce back? What do you guys think? Let's start with
People are gonna crap talk no matter what. Sorry.
Let's start with Realth on this one.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I think Overwatch has kind of just been screwed from the outset. Okay? It's been completely messed up from the start. The simple fact is it was meant to be a 6v6 game, and it should have been, at the very least, 2 separate ladders for one-off group queues, so you can get an average SR of how the people play in the group, not the actual SRs, and a solo ladder. It should have been like that from the start. And I think it kind of it kind of goes into all of the problems Overwatch has had, not only with toxicity, but also with stuff like different queue times for tank and that sort of stuff. You have this kind of like trust system in other games like World of Warcraft where tanks have to exist, because tanks will exist because you'll get into better groups if you're a tank, right? Because there's less of them to go around. So the population necessarily fills itself. And in terms of toxicity, I mean, the solo queue system was always going to be toxic. It's kind of designed to be toxic. There's nothing really you can do about it. Blizzard thought they could put a stopper on it. But I don't think they ever could. I really think, you can manage it, sure. If Microsoft tries to manage it more aggressively while keeping the solo queue system, I've got a feeling they're just going to start banning people that aren't, they're not going to do it by hand, let's just say that. There's going to be a lot more scattershot kind of stuff. So personally, I think Blizzard probably already met the kind of like peak of the amount of toxicity you can handle. If they go any higher or harder on that, I think it's just going to become complaints in the other direction. I don't think they can handle more.
What do complaints in the other direction mean? Sorry, I don't follow.
As in, I have been banned and they won't listen to me kind of thing.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried because Obviously, extra accounts needs to be solved. I mean, I was absolutely fine and would have been fine, despite the fact that nobody else would have been fine with it, with a buy-in into a comp mode. So I would have been fine paying like 15 quid to have my account verified or something like that.
Sure.
Maybe just two-factor authentication for accounts and stuff like that needs to be in place in order to keep the competitive aspect. But I do think, like, at the bottom of the pile, that there's this pile stacked up, and right at the bottom here, they probably should have made it 6v6 to begin with. Please, just actually have a team queue so we can play together.
Would be fantastic. Pioneer, I want to move on to you because in your role, you handle more esports than just Overwatch. I don't know how much experience you have on the latter here, but what do you think? Does Overwatch stand up as like, hey, this is as aggressive as games get in sort of their handling of toxicity? Is Overwatch more or less toxic than other games? What do you have to say here?
At least from my experience, it's I'm not gonna say it's like I don't know for sure if it's like up there, but I think it's like one of like the kind of like the one of the golden standards. I don't know, like Overwatch and League are, as far as like my understanding, been the two most. But I think it's I think about a game like Rocket League, which, and as far as I know, hasn't seemed as toxic. But I think the more avenues of communication you have in a game, the more opportunities it is for it to be toxic. Like when Rocket League, a lot of people are playing on console. Like at some point, you're starting to type a whole message on a console. You're just like, you know what? All right, this is just a waste of time. Whereas like, if you're on a PC game, it's like a lot easier to just scoop, type something real quick and just send it. I don't know. I think just esports in general, when you have a game that puts together random people who don't even know each other, people don't even like working with people in their own class on a group project.
Group
more or less,
suck.
Yeah, exactly. More or less, random people they've never met and don't even have to see in their face. Like, I don't think that Microsoft, as much as they'll try their best, like, I think it's just something that's just gonna be there. As pessimistic as it sounds, I think it's just always gonna be there no matter what game it is.
Okay, so Real thinks if they ban people more aggressively, they're gonna get a lot of backlash, and you'd say kind of a similar, like, it's about as well handled as it can be in terms of if people have keyboards and are anonymous, it just sucks. Is that just kind of reality? Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Maxwell? What are your thoughts here in terms of what they'll tolerate based on the rest of their library and infinite Smurfs?
Well, specifically to Overwatch, there's 3 core aspects. You could apply this to any game even.
Okay.
The 3 core aspects of frustration that leads to toxicity. One is winning being outside of your control.
Sure.
You have a lot of that in Overwatch, to where you do what feels like everything that you can and then you lose anyway. That's a big point of frustration. And then you've got systemic frustration where you feel like it's unfair. Why am I 4,500 being mashed into 4,100 lobbies with a master, right? Why do I have to place 3,900 just to get up into 4,400 anyway? Why can't people camp their SRs? Little things like that. And then, of course, the multiple accounts thing could be solved by a simple systemic change in that line of being fair, right? Where if somebody gets banned, they're banned for life in competitive, where it's just two-factor authentication. You can only have one phone number. With one phone, people aren't going to want to pay that much money. At least the vast majority of people aren't going to even be able to pay that much money to replace accounts. And then you solve
I can just imagine the hackers with the drawer of burner phones.
So toxic alt account names as well, right? So all of that solved, and then the rest is just game design, to where it's like, okay, we're going to, and they're already doing this, right? Lessening healing, reducing the amount of stuns, removing the more frustrating aspects, while also giving more control to the individual player, to where you don't feel like you need to rely on your teammates. There will still be frustration and there will still be toxic moments, but it's about decreasing that at large. Most of that is under the development team side, but then Microsoft will just be keeping an eye on it to make sure that the development team has systems in place that accomplish that properly. And if it doesn't, then they'll look at it. They'll be like, you need to look at this to make sure that you have a good environment for your players.
Okay, so you think it gets a bit better because, hey, we have the design of Overwatch 2 itself, and I think most of us would probably echo this, is a little less systematically frustrating, and that helps at least a little bit. Fair?
Yeah. And the devs in the AMA already talked about how they were looking at the competitive system from the ground up in terms of individual seasons being interesting, the beginning, end, and middle of seasons being more exciting and interesting, exploring different ways, just in their vague terms of using the word, exploring it from the ground up, right? So I'm sure they've already looked at it, and they will especially continue to look at it as PvP comes closer.
Okay. I want to do another pass on Game Pass here because we can see that was something central that they were really talking about in terms of things that might not be the most important to us in the Overwatch world, but that was clearly very important in terms of one of the biggest factors in the acquisition there and in the console area in general, which I think people care about. I don't think any of us are hard in the console scene, but do people have thoughts, concerns? Do any of us have Game Pass? That might be the first question. If not, maybe we just move on here. I do
Temporal,
not.
I have a question.
Shoot.
What does Metaverse mean?
Well, I'm going with the Snow Crash version, regardless of what Bobby says there. But no, where are you going here, Maxwell?
Well, I hear the buzzword thrown around a lot, and I feel like there's not a single solid definition for it yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like it's the same thing with NFTs.
Sure.
Like NFT at least has an actual meaning. It's
Mhm.
like paintings. It's just it's the number that's applied with the thing when you buy it.
Mhm.
Sure, they can make a copy, but you hold the original kind of thing.
Okay.
I have no idea what Metaverse means, and then Phil Spencer is just saying, "Oh yeah, this is a play for the Metaverse." I'm like, what is it? What is that? It's like, is Smash Bros
Want
a
your money.
Metaverse? Is
Well,
it the first Metaverse?
I'm not.
Is maybe Avengers the biggest Metaverse in the world? What does it
Well,
mean?
No, it's a
I
cinematic
mean,
universe.
monopoly.
What's that?
It means essentially a monopoly of the things you're going to spend money on, I think.
Right.
It
It's
is
sort of like,
essentially it.
let's create a second World Wide Web, but we own the platform now of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's what it is. I'm less willing to get into Metaverse here because I think it's a little too
I
beyond
know.
the discussion, and I don't actually think it was as big a motivator for them as
We're just kind of a
the
little
IPs,
overrated.
the dev staff, but I do think Game Pass was a bigger thing, which was why I
Yeah.
honed in on that. Like, that they clearly care about. They were clearly much more moved by the, 300, 400 million user base that existed for Blizzard or for Activision's BattleNet than they were by, some of the other stuff
Mhm.
there, because they're like, hey, we have, 25 million Game Pass. They obviously aren't going to get a money conversion from all of the people in BattleNet, but clearly they think they can get a percent of that, and that's more interesting to them. What you got, Ralph?
Yeah, it's
There's
certainly
kind of a sorry.
Ralph, go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah, there's kind of an elephant in the room here, which is everyone knows what Game Pass is. It's you pay a certain amount of money and you get games for free.
Mhm.
If Overwatch is included in this section, possibly speeding along to free to play, which I'm pretty sure the community is mostly set on being absolutely good,
Yeah.
like fundamentally good for the game in general. So yes, maybe. The trouble is there's not that many up-to-date IPs from Blizzard that will be tantalizing for Microsoft now. I mean, maybe they're just making a play into the future and saying, like, when Diablo 4 comes out, we'll just put that on there and that'll increase upticks. But I feel like their long-term aim is to just have half the world paying, what is it, $20 a month for Game Pass? I feel like that's their aim in general.
Okay.
I think it's a little interesting because obviously they're the most obvious thing is that they're expanding their library. So it's the kind of thing where they're kind of trying to pull a Netflix with the gaming industry, but it's harder because shows are different, and then there's already the whole sprout off, the owning intellectual properties.
It might be easier because it's a lot less about licensing rights to things. Like, it's harder if you go that route, but they're going the route of, no, we own everything, so we don't have to buy it for 5 years or renew the contract in 3 years and then lose our library like Netflix did. They're trying to just own everything, vertical monopoly style here.
What I was going to go for was that it certainly is appealing, and whenever I look at like the Blizzard catalog, I'm not gonna pay $17 a month for World of Warcraft. I'm not gonna buy some of these other games, but I might try them if they were all under the same umbrella, and then it's just up to them to revamp those IPs and make them strong again, make them more appealing. I don't know how else it would be, because I mean they bought them for their content, and I think they're kind of, if you think about it in a different sense, World of Warcraft's original model was a monthly pay system. They're just going to do that with the entire Activision Blizzard King catalog.
Sure.
Okay,
They're also very interested in mobile gaming, which is interesting because Diablo Immortal is looking to be an actually pretty good mobile game, that was the You Guys Have Phone Right game. And then Overwatch 2 is probably going to have a mobile game eventually. It's that secret project, You've got COD Mobile. They're really invested into the
Candy Crush.
mobile aspect, and I think that's maybe even a bigger part than the Game Pass.
Yeah, King is huge. I mean, King is a
Yeah,
silly
absolutely.
amount of Activision's
Candy Crush.
stuff, and it's true that Microsoft doesn't have much play in the mobile world. From a mobile game standpoint, they have nothing, and every time they've tried to go into more the hardware side, they haven't done too well either. So it makes sense that they'd be looking to make a move there. Yeah. How does everyone feel about mobile games here? Are we in the
That's
how
good.
dare they, or are they a nice distraction as you sort of?
It's
want to
just a
say?
waste of their time for me. I just could not care less. Therefore, every second that is spent developing these is time spent not developing a game I might care about, basically.
Well, maybe for you personally, but if you think about it a different way, if you look at Fortnite, right? A large amount of their money comes from the mobile aspect instead of the PC aspect. If you think about it a different way, a lot of the funding for Fortnite's new content comes from the mobile side. So even just having that other side of things, right? Even if it takes a little bit of extra time, we don't know how it's divvied up, right? We don't know if
Yeah.
it'll be
They could
an
get a completely
Overwatch
different
2.
division to do the
Yeah,
mobile side.
exactly.
You would
There
never know.
could be no delay at all. But there's so much extra money going into the Overwatch franchise. You'll see more Overwatch content in general. And if there's more Overwatch content going into, it's doing really well on mobile and PC in the game, and you've got a great story, let's make a TV show like Arcane, because League of Legends did really well. Let's make a movie, right? Hire Chris Pratt to play a character. And then you're just like you're able to explore all these different things because they feel like mobile was a good success.
Yeah, I guess I'm just still feeling negative about it because I knew what Blizzard's resources were. And Blizzard, if they were making mobile games alongside the other things, I know pretty much for a fact that they didn't expand the teams enough to have them pay for their own development time in terms of the actual dev
I can
time.
believe that. Yeah.
But with Microsoft, you don't know. They could just expand the team by 100 people, get those 100 people to do something completely different with the same IP. That'd be absolutely, and then just have a mix of the teams. I guess I'm negative still just because I've known the resources the company had, but obviously into the future, it's an open door. If it pays for itself, it pays for itself. So yeah.
Okay. Any thoughts here, Pioneer, or not your topic?
Nah, I mean, I think I don't know. I haven't really been big into mobile gaming. Obviously there's some benefit to it if they're still if all these companies are still investing in it. You keep hearing whispers about it, but it's not necessarily something that I know too much about.
It's not whispers, unfortunately. I think us in the hardcore gaming space don't see it because we have pretty good computers, but from a revenue standpoint, from getting India engagement, from getting China engagement, when they're not locking down the number of hours
China
the children
loves
can
mobile
play,
games.
It is like half of the revenue in gaming at this point. It's a
insane.
Big deal. Okay.
I'm sure Warzone has benefited a lot from that.
Yeah, China loves mobile games and Blizzard loves money, so
who doesn't?
It's a company.
So I mean, yeah, they're required to. So let's then go circle back to esports here, because esports is something that I think we care about. I think we care about OWL, we care about collegiate, we care about contenders. What do we think it means? Do we think we're gonna have a better path to pro, a worse path to pro? I know there was some thoughts from you, Maxwell, of hey, maybe they'll open stuff up, and that seemed like most folk in the hopeful realm. I'm not hearing a ton of evidence surrounding that, but we can certainly hope. But we're going to work in the speculation world here. That's fine. We don't have much announcements around esports at this point. We mostly got to hear about, hey, we mostly got to hear about Game Pass. We mostly got to hear about the IPs, the developers that they get to acquire, and then lastly, Metaverse. So esports clearly wasn't like a top consideration for them, but what do we think this means, since we're a group that somewhat cares about esports here? And let's start with, go ahead, Maxwell. You're going to jump out at it, so go ahead.
Okay.
It's fine.
You're just accusing me right now, throwing me under the bus. Esports side, pretty much does the same thing I said. Hopefully they do it well. There'll be less restrictions. At the same time that they'll have better leadership, it'll also be a leadership that takes less direct control. And then I don't know about the Overwatch team's specific experience with esports, but it's more likely to see a world where the Overwatch team is just like, okay, Overwatch League, you deal with all the grassroots tier 2, tier 3 stuff. And then we know that the Overwatch League has good management that knows how esports works.
Oh god, they know what they're doing, don't they?
Yeah. And so it's much more feasible to say, look at the Blizzard side of things, and they take away from control and just give it to the Overwatch League, and then they can do the right things, and then we have a good system. Right?
I guess my concern
it's more feasible.
Is usually when management goes, hey, we're going to leave it to you. We're not going to pay attention to that. With that comes, we're going to give you less resources. You can get resources from management when they want to put their hands in the pie and move stuff around and be annoying. And I do this because I've done project management. I've done all this work. And the further away the C-suite gets, generally the less you're able to go, hey, we need more resources, or we need to grow our budget by, 8% each year to handle this, that sort of thing. So I guess I'd have some concern there. But okay.
Can't disagree with that.
If large amounts of money start getting thrown around, you never know how well the Overwatch League will actually handle that, because they haven't had to the degree that Microsoft might want to fund them before in a big bundle. It really is huffing hopium and crossing your fingers at this point.
Sure.
I mean, personally, I don't think I can do much else. I can cross my fingers, but there's so many questions up in the air as to not even... I mean, Overwatch 2 is going to be released. I know that, because they've already spent too much money on it.
Agreed.
Aside from that, I think almost everything is up in the air still, especially because of this upset. They've released loads about it. We know loads about it. But they could still do a 180, honestly. And it's hard because this is a completely new management team, and if somebody near the top wants to completely change things around, they could just say, yeah, stop, just doing something else.
Okay. Fair enough.
There are no guarantees.
Yeah.
But
I am kind of interested to see, one thought came to me is that, obviously things could be benefit, but I think as far as like running collegiate things, what if Microsoft takes a page, and so we've been thinking about a lot of like what Microsoft can do for Activision Blizzard, kind of on the flip side, like
they could make their own. I'm sorry.
Yeah, collegiate Halo.
They could. This is really interesting.
Yeah.
They could make their own competitive software, so we don't have to keep playing on game battles.
Well, that's just hoping for too much now. I mean,
but it's Microsoft. They're the software guys.
That's true.
Right.
I don't know that
it
I
could
need
happen
Teams again. I might get blacklisted.
It could happen.
This, but I don't know that
My
I
dreams.
want to use Teams again, for example. Okay.
I mean, yeah, it is interesting to think about how maybe Activision Blizzard could, like, obviously there is like leagues starting up with Collegiate Halo, and we've seen Microsoft just kind of be more hands off on stuff, but who knows if they decide to take a page the opposite way as well.
Could we see them combine leagues a little bit more? Like, the Overwatch League is such a big esports platform phenomenon. Could they leverage that, or is that just out of the picture with how all the buy-ins happened and things like that? Like, could they go, no, we're going to make this the Microsoft esport World Cup or Olympics or in general type thing? Like, could they go wider with that, or am I just, totally in my own fantasy here?
I think Microsoft's name attached to esports events could increase a lot of validity towards organizers or people who are looking to, like, if Activision Blizzard wants to come and rent out a space for a big event, you could just have Microsoft be like, okay, we're going to rent out this space for 3 events of Call of Duty, Overwatch, and Halo, and then just do all of them at the same time. And that would be massive and awesome. And so it'd be kind of your own Super Bowl every year. So there's definitely the potential. I'm skeptical, especially because, you looked at the pushback from the Overwatch League investors for the teams and how they wanted PvP to come out. right? They're not just gonna shut down the Overwatch League. It's not gonna happen. We know it's not going away. It's just we don't know if it's going to get more support and go in a better direction,
Well,
or if it'll
Doa
just be
thinks
like
it
more
is.
self growth.
I mean, he obviously has no inside information that would lead us to believe that he's right, but like, is it? I'm not convinced that, like, we're going to see another year of it for sure. Is it guaranteed that we've got 4, 5, 6 more years of Overwatch League? Like,
I was talking about specifically with the merger.
Oh, got it. Well, but that's
It's
sort
not
of what
going
I'm
away with the merger.
talking about. That is sort of what I'm talking about, where it's like, hey, this was, I think people would say, mostly a failure when it comes to the Overwatch League. I don't think I'm being too tough there. I think, like, it looked pretty good for the first year. It could have worked in the second, and it's mostly downstream. It is not. I should put this in the way of the organizations that bought in, that paid their sign-up fees, would prefer to have that money back at this point and to have used that money differently. Does anyone really disagree with that?
Valiant agrees.
Right.
I've got a feeling that the core lies at the root of the problem. Blizzard thought they were making TF2. Okay, that's what they thought they were doing originally. They had no idea what direction they were going, and therefore a lot of things really were hampered by it, such as readability of the game. Personally, I'm not even sure that Overwatch is properly set up as a game with so much visual clutter to be one of the top esports. It can compete, and obviously it did compete for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It was passing League of Legends for quite a long time.
Okay.
But at the core of the issue, there is that Blizzard didn't know what they were creating. They never really have, and they still kind of don't understand it. So
I think they
sure.
had different opinions on what they were creating. I think some of them sort of knew what they were creating. I think that's why they originally intended that 6-person only queue. But then, different people in different positions were like, no, of course we're going to have a solo queue. I think, some of them were like, we can even hear Jeff saying, I'm not sure this is an esport title. And then, no, it's definitely going to be an esport title. Similar to Fortnite, where it doesn't really make sense as an esport, but guess what? It's going to be an esport, when it was at its peak type thing.
Yeah, I'd say so. I'm not sure if the readability issues of Overwatch is a death knell. I mean, at the end of the day, 5v5 does slightly solve. Like, you can say whatever you want about 5v5, but it does slightly solve the readability issue. It's not an all-encompassing fix. The question is whether it takes out enough complexity for that to take away something from the higher level, kind of like actually watching the sport kind of side of it. And whether that takes away more than it does to like increase the readability.
I just would worry that Microsoft would use this as a chance to pivot out of a league that maybe they aren't necessarily hugely interested in being in the first place. But okay.
We'll have to see.
Fair enough. So I think that exhausts the topics that we have to cover here. I think we can circle back and see what, if people have stuff that they desperately want to cover. But Realth, I know you've got a stream going as well. So if you have interesting questions from chat, you can pull those up as well and you can co-host here. But does anyone else have anything that they feel like is really important in this acquisition or that they really want to talk about here that we haven't covered? Okay. Good talk.
I'm trying to read Real's lips, and it's not.
Yeah,
working.
I just asked chat if they wanted anything. That's all I wanted. So give them 2 minutes. They don't say anything.
Yeah, no,
we're good for the most part.
No problem. Okay.
It is tough. Like I can just say my spiel about Blizzard having no idea what they're doing, and therefore it led down the garden path to the shed that they eventually would shoot Overwatch behind. It did start out with them thinking they were making a different game, and there's been so many decisions and so much curving and winding to make an esport out of it. The only thing that I think has been holding Overwatch League together has been the incredible talent of the people that make it, quite frankly. The fact that they're picking up viewer figures is astounding. It is incredibly good. And if Microsoft realizes that there's a shining future somewhere in Overwatch esports, that I just hope, if Overwatch esports does eventually die, I just hope that those talents go somewhere else into esports and make production quality better somewhere else.
Well, I think some of them are doing a good job of setting up their feelers for the next place. We're seeing some of the casters, etc., get their feet wet in Valorant, some things like that. There's more to production than just casters, obviously, but I think some of them will survive. You know, generally the best are able to survive and go elsewhere, and they were able to get some experience here, which is good, though it helps if there continues to be growth here and elsewhere. What?
So for me personally, if I was Microsoft, right, looking at it from their perspective, they just spent all this money. If you look at the Overwatch League, it's actually a pretty small portion. Even like the millions, like $20 million per team, $60 million per team. That's a small fraction compared to the investment that they made into Activision Blizzard, right? So if
Sure.
you look at, because they have like what $150 billion in store just sitting around, and which is why they're able to invest in Activision Blizzard in the first place, something like that. They were just looking for ways to spend the money to invest in broader ventures. So if I were them, right, looking at Overwatch 2, the potential of the franchise, the love, the casual players, like I'm both competitive and casual. I love the lore. I love the characters. I'm subscribed to a YouTube channel that is all about Overwatch interactions because I love them that much, right? And so you got that potential on the PvE side, and then you've got extra franchising potential. I'd say I'd give it, a couple years after Overwatch 2's release, under the new leadership of we'll try to prosper this franchise as much as possible and let the Overwatch League do their thing because we know that they're incredible. And if Overwatch 2 as a game, because they know how to do games well, if Overwatch 2 as a game does really well and the Overwatch League doesn't match it, then they'll start to question it, right? But it's kind of a whole bunch of asterisks. But if I were them, I'd want to experiment with the potential of it and see where it can go because the foundation's already there. So I don't really have to do much more work. I just gotta make sure that Overwatch 2 is a good game.
I think it's just an extra sort of logistical thing. If it's already up and running and doing fine, maybe it's okay to let go for a couple of years. I agree. But I think there are some, hey, do we want this logistical complication to our company that isn't, doing huge amounts of revenue, we'll effectively say. Like, it breaks too often. It requires us getting involved with this team, that team, whatever team that is outside of them too often. But fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay.
I'm interested. There's also an argument that you could you go ahead. I've said a lot of the words already.
Sure. One more time, Maxwell. What you got?
Well, I was just gonna follow up, basically saying that we don't know exactly what problems were caused by the dev team and what problems were caused by management. Right now, it's been confirmed by a lead producer that a lot of Overwatch 2 delays, months of time were wasted because of Bobby Kotick's bad leadership, which is just, it's pretty bad. But then you've got, Bobby Kotick didn't design Brigitte. That's the dev team's problem. So it's a kind of a question mark. I'm curious, and I think we'll see the result is, one, they're really good at learning, but two, we'll see what errors specifically were the dev teams or not, more around the time of Overwatch 2's release.
I mean, we
the
might.
months following.
I don't know that we'll ever have a truly perfect answer into that because it's very
we'll
likely
have a better idea, though.
Microsoft is going to come in with their own goals. Hey, this is the new toy. And they might say, hey, run on your own. This is great. And they might say, ooh, I want to play with this. I want to do this. Because, again, that is common after acquisitions, after you've just spent a lot of money on something. Or, hey, you have to work this into our Game Pass system, and that means infinite accounts. And, that sort of thing where we get into, okay, that's challenging. So I can say from my chat, we just have, what do we have here? We have Sklounced thinks you are very, very attractive and clearly is one of your super fans. So he's saying hello here, Maxwell.
Thank you. What was the name?
Skloust, I believe it was.
Skloust. Thank you, Skloust. I appreciate that.
Realth, you got anything interesting for us over from your chat?
No, I didn't get anything interesting from chat. I think as a kind of like closing statement, they bought the company for $70 billion, right? They want something out of it. They're going to squeeze blood from this stone. I don't think there's that much from the Activision side. Honestly, there is money they're going to make there, but I don't think there's the massive change in management they want. I don't think they're going to extort a lot of money out of Candy Crush, quite frankly. Obviously, they can do stuff with King, but I don't think that's where they're going to change all the management, flip it over, and then make money there.
No, they might make
Blizzard
money
is
there by
the-
doing more hiring for that department,
Yeah,
quite frankly, because
course.
there could be a lot of money to make there, quite frankly. But
Mhm,
I don't
of
think
course.
we'll see it.
Yeah, I think in the short term, Blizzard is the investment. The fact is, they think Activision Blizzard currently running under market price because they think if we simply turn over we just flip the management around, we fix it, they start producing games again instead of trash for the last 7 years, maybe like we can just start making money with this, the easiest thing ever. I think that's where they're going, and I think that's a massive investment we're going to get from that every single game.
Pioneer, do you think that we can just flip a few people, maybe not a few people, but like a few dozen people around in management and we can produce Blizzard games faster? What are your thoughts here?
Not exactly, but I do think it's helping. I think the biggest thing that I've kind of like thought about, kind of like the background is the effect on the current employees. I think it's always easier to work for someone that you want to work for. And I'm really interested to see how that changes. I mean, who knows what employees have been there, been like, man, I just really don't want to come to work. And that, really affects just them while they're at work versus now that, kind of, it's crazy to say, like, they have like a little bit of hope. I'm excited I'm hopeful. I'm excited. My thoughts have been a lot with like the current employees now, and hopefully this brings a positive effect to not just their work environment, but kind of like just a life environment for them as well.
That's such a good point. I can't believe I forgot that point.
Appreciate it.
I guess there is no grass. No matter who we replace these people with, it couldn't possibly be worse. And
True.
Microsoft does have a working HR department, to say the least. They seem to at
Really?
least.
Yeah, that's the weirdest
My brother
thing
worked for
where
Microsoft, and he had a good experience. It was
you
fun.
just watched Activision, like, this starts and their whole HR and legal department quits, and it's just like, isn't that why we're paying you so much money, so that like you're here? I know, but
Yeah, hazard pay. You think there's some of it, right?
Imagine an alternate universe where Activision Blizzard King is so corrupt that they corrupt Microsoft, and then Sony becomes the sole kings of gaming.
let's not pretend Microsoft is all clean here, guys. Like, they've been avoiding most of the antitrust issues in recent years, and I think they won't run into antitrust issues here, because I do think they'll look at it and say, hey, they're not the biggest, Tencent is bigger, hey, Activision isn't the biggest player in this. Yes, it's a fusion of Xbox and Activision, and that matters, but it's not, based on how we're currently interpreting antitrust laws, terribly likely. It could be. I mean, we blocked T-Mobile from joining up with the biggest or second biggest wireless carrier at the time, like 5 or 6 years back, but that was kind of the exception. Usually we've been letting this sort of thing go through when they're of this size, and when it's not it's consolidating down to just 1 to 2 players. So I think we're good there, yeah. But like, let's not pretend that Microsoft hasn't in the past had issues where people might have said, hey, you're strong-arming your supplier, hey, you're doing this. Like, let's, they're fine. They've got a better track record recently than Activision, and I think it gets rid of a lot of negative PR, but I don't want to, like, how shall I say?
I was talking about environmental stuff.
Okay.
Right? For example, if the board of directors and Bobby Kotick, were so fundamentally toxic that they tainted Microsoft and made them crash in and have their own, it's just a funny alternate reality version of this merger where Microsoft, like Minecraft, starts being World of Warcraft modeled to where you have to pay $17 a month.
Okay.
It's just a funny alternate reality for me.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Then I think we are good to go here, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. So, I'm going to say bye to everyone on stream, and it's been great to work with you all as well. I have listed socials for everyone in the description of this one down below, so if you want to check out more from anyone, definitely do that. Maxwell, do you have any final thing to say about where people can find you?
I don't know if my Discord's linked.
I did link your Discord below.
You linked? Okay, so if you want to find me and talk with me, you wanna get some coaching, because I started doing some free on-stream VOD review coaching. I'm encroaching on your territory, Rails. Okay, watch your back.
How could you?
Yeah, I was going to say we don't have any of the people here who do coaching online.
Nah,
dare you.
nah. Well, mine's free temporal. Sorry, I'm just. It's about this
You
friendly
guys hear that?
competition.
Max
right?
is so bad at this that he has to give this
I'm
away for
so
free.
good at this.
Oh,
Wow.
oh.
After one VOD review, a guy won 10 games.
Nice.
And it
Oh
was,
my. Oh.
Nice. Okay.
I mean,
God.
all I'm saying, right, is that it's a good investment of literally just time. All
That's
right.
fair. That's fair.
So come in, join my Discord server. You just talk to me if you want to. You don't even need to get a VOD review. It'd just be nice to chat. Tell me what you think about what we're talking about, your own opinions. I'd love to have just a conversation to get to know you.
Sounds good. Pioneer, I've linked your Twitter in the description below. But other than that, what should people know? Are you gonna be doing some recruiting on stream here this second? What you got?
I mean, of course, I always like to think we have a lovely program here at Lord's University. I'm really excited for where we're headed. Should be a great semester for all of our teams. Overwatch team specifically, kind of buffed up the team a little bit. So finished top 24 last semester in TESPA. So we're hoping to make it, farther than that. So, but not just to highlight our Overwatch team, all of our programs we're really excited about. So if anybody wants, to chat about like the collegiate scene at all, or just kind of like anything in general, my Twitter I think is in the bio. Feel free to shoot me a message.
Yeah, we just had the postings earlier today for the registration went up for our new collegiate scene, which is going to have top 32 from East and West, separate divisions. We're getting more serious again this year. Good to see.
Yeah.
And Realth, I think many of my viewers know you. I think we've butted heads in a friendly way
Yeah.
most of the time, but
I love it when you disagree with things I say.
it's fun. It's fun.
He does that a lot.
Yeah, so the only thing that I really want to plug with myself is please watch my 2 tanky design space videos.
Please do.
I put a great deal of thought into them, and I really do think it's kind of stuff that nobody else has said before, which is it's hard to say, quite frankly, in the Overwatch space. I'm also making another video on support design space and how to actually make supports as well. So that will be coming up, hopefully, in a couple of weeks. I am notoriously bad at making things. Other than that, Ralph, anywhere, YouTube, or Twitch. Twitch is the name of the site.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Then with that,
Twitch.tv.
we'll go ahead and close it out. Thanks, everyone.